announcing the first pyro plushie from Deadites on deck. Poe, he is adorably mischievous, cute as a button, and ready to be your forever friend. Someone to talk to when you are lonely, someone to keep the monsters away at midnight, someone to hug when you've had a hard day. Welcome home, Poe. We hope you will stay. Welcome home, Poe. We hope you will stay.
Watching movies, we forget chick and the gang. Funny, strange, hysterical, or just plain bang bad. This weekend just got amazing. It's a watch-along weekend. Horror and sci-fi, comedy and more. We got it all this weekend. This weekend just got amazing. It's a watch-along weekend. Horror and sci-fi, comedy and more. We got it all this weekend.
Howdy, gang, and welcome to the almost famous watch along that I thought wasn't going to happen tonight. Because apparently, somewhere in the neighborhood or close by, a transformer blew and our electricity blinked, but came back on. Then, approximately 30 minutes later, it went off and stayed off for a while, and they said the estimated time that it would be fixed would be 8:30. And I was like, well, I guess that means the watch along is, not going to happen tonight. Well, so I rescheduled it through StreamYard, and then about 30 to 45 minutes later, the power came back on. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to wait a little bit, make sure the power is going to stay on. And then if it stays on, I will go ahead and put it back for tonight. So hence, apologies for that little snafu. And for anybody that was confused, why was it for 7? Then it got rescheduled for next Sunday, and now it's back to the regular time. I apologize for that, but power is one of those things that if it goes out, sometimes you're not really sure if it's going to come back on in a few minutes, a few hours. It's going to take all night. It usually just depends on how badly how bad the issue is. The thing was, we weren't having a storm. We weren't having wind. We weren't having anything. Apparently just a transformer just blew just because. So, but in any event, I am here for the almost famous watch along. I want to thank everybody that voted for not only this watch along, but the one last night for Hell Night. Didn't really have a lot of people show up for that one, but that's okay. Might not have a lot for this one either. Again, for those of you that are watching it or that may watch this on the replay, if I need to make adjustments to time, if a later time, if an earlier time will work for the majority of you folks, please let me know, because I am very flexible and I want to make these watch alongs and other live streams available when you guys and gals will be able to most likely be able to watch them. Okay. So We are watching, or I am watching, the bootleg cut of Almost Famous, which I believe is the longer cut. If you don't have that version to watch, in fact, I'm going to, and apologies for me not being um, on top of this. A lot of times I forget to find a link for these things. So if you've got Paramount Plus, you can watch it. Um, I'm not seeing it right off as, for watching it for free. I mean, like I said, if you've got Paramount Plus, you can most certainly watch the bootleg cut there. Let me check one more area, folks. I think the bootleg cut is also known as the extended cut, because I believe that if you have MGM Plus, you can also watch it there. Um, so yeah, I'm not really seeing it. So if you have the bootleg cut, um, feel free to watch along using that. If you have Paramount Plus or MGM Plus, you can watch it there. If you have a copy somewhere that you can watch, again, this is the bootleg cut, the extended cut that we will be watching tonight. If you have another version of it, I will try my best to let you know where I am in the film. So that you can, adjust your particular copy. So, let's get a few housekeeping things out of the way, and then we'll get to this movie, because this movie is about 2 hours and 41 minutes or something like that long. The bootleg cut is. So, first of all, for those of you that were in here early and saw the plushie, the Poe plushie commercial or intro or whatever you want to call it, I'll be happy to show Poe, the first Poe I have created. Like I've said before, this is my Poe. I will not be mailing him out to anybody, but you will get one that looks similar. The thing about me hand sewing these is no Poe is going to look exactly like any other Poe, because these are not mass produced. They will be made to order. That means I'm not going to be making a bunch of these and have them just sitting around the house should they not get sold. But I think he's really cute, and I'm really proud of the job I did on him. I'm going to make some improvements along the way. One of the things is I'm going to be getting something called invisible thread, which is basically a thread that's like fishing line. For any of you that have fished in your lifetime, you know what that invisible thread is going to be like. In fact, I asked my mom about it. I was like, do they have like invisible thread, or is there clear thread? I think that's the way I put it. And she said, yeah, but she says it's hard to work with. And I said, well, is it like fishing line? She said, yeah, it kind of is. So there are several improvements that through the production of this first Poe, I realized that I could make to future Poes. So the price tag on him is going to be $50. And that is because It does take time. It does take material. These are all hand sewn. I'm not sewing these on a machine. I'm not mass producing these. These are one of a kind. You know, like I said, one will not be exactly like the other, right? So the Booga Booga Bears will be going down in price to about $30, and the Poe plushie plus any other plushies I make will have that $50 price tag. So just wanted to let you know about that. There's still some new t-shirt designs that will be coming soon, including hopefully some new Deadites on Deck logos that will show up on the site, the shop site at deaditesondeck.com. Okay, movie roulette. I want to announce movie roulette again because this is a live stream. Technically, watch alongs are live streams. So during any live stream I do, if you give a $5 or more super chat, you can pick any movie of your choosing for me to watch and do a review of on an upcoming episode of Movie Roulette. I've got one coming up with a couple of movies that Menelect picked. Jeepers Creepers and Host. He actually, the second one, he gave me a couple that I could pick from, and I picked Host. So I'll be doing an upcoming Movie Roulette here hopefully sooner rather than later for Jeepers Creepers and Host. I want to thank Menelect again for the monetary support. But with that being said, there are many, 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 many ways that you can support me and support the Deadites on Deck channel. You can subscribe if you're liking the content that I'm putting out. You can hit that notification bell so you don't miss any content that I'm putting out. And also, well, if YouTube does its job correctly, and you can also like and share any of the videos that you really enjoyed from my channel. And all of those things cost you absolutely nothing, but they help support me. They help support the channel because all of those things get me higher up in the algorithms of YouTube. Okay. And get more and more people to watch. My goal right now is to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm at about 916, 917 subscribers right now. And if I get to 1,000, me and Candace are definitely going to be doing some cosplay. I'm going to be doing Cheryl from The Evil Dead, and Candace will be doing Mrs. Roper from Three's Company. And if we can get our men involved, Chris will be doing cosplay for Chrissy from Three's Company, and Steve will be doing Janet from Three's Company. But no explicit confirmation on that from our husbands. But me and Candace will definitely be doing the cosplay if we can get me to 1,000 subscribers. A little note about Friday Foolish. Friday Foolish has been kind of here, there, and everywhere as of late due to scheduling conflicts with me and work and due to Candace being busy. So if you see that we're going to have Friday Foolish, if you see some promotion for it, then you know that there's going to be a Friday Foolish upcoming. If you don't, you can pretty much assume that there's not going to be a Friday Foolish. Hopefully, we'll be able to get back to a more regular basis with them. But just right now, things are kind of up in the air for both Candace and I on that. But I want to thank everybody for their continued support of Friday Foolish. And my channel and me and all of that good stuff. And hopefully some of you guys and gals that I've seen popping in and out here will come back when I finish my spiel here. But hopefully this week, I've got a busy week coming up for work, but hopefully I will be able to do some more Dick's Picks, some more cannon fodder, more They're All Messed Up. I really, really want to do a Savage debate too. Hopefully I can do Savage debate tomorrow night, talking about the original Evil Dead versus Evil Dead 2013. So if you haven't heard me talk about those two films and how much I dislike Evil Dead 2013, you might want to tune in for the savage debate coming up on those two films. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to bring up before we get this movie started. So I can't think of anything right now. If I do think of anything, I'll try to put that out there. But I am using Steve's Blu-ray of the bootleg cut because I only have a 4K and I have no way to play a 4K back here at my computer desk. So I am about 29 seconds in on the Blu-ray. I'm at the DreamWorks SKG logo. I think I just got an arrival from Amazon, so I'm going to step away for 1 second to get that in. But I'm going to give y'all a minute or two to get queued up if you're going to be watching along tonight. Again, I'm 29 seconds in on the bootleg cut of Almost Famous. I'm at the DreamWorks SKG logo, and I will be right back, gang. All right, gang, I'm back. Apparently, that wasn't my package. It was just letting me know about the chance of rain. We've had chances of rain every day, it seems like, for the past few days. So that was just my device telling me about the chances of rain. Okay. But in any event, we're going to go ahead and get this party started. And if anybody comes in later needs a timestamp, I'll be glad to give that to them. And if anybody wants to come in on this watch along for Almost Famous, you're welcome to. Just please let me know in the chat and I will make sure that I get that link to you. And without further ado, we're about 7:19, 7:20 this evening. So we're going to go ahead and get the do the countdown and get the movie started. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, press play. We're at the Vinyl Films logo. And I don't know why I can't get this screen off of here. That's got the play and all that. I may just have to leave it up there because I'm afraid that I will mess this up if I try to get it off there. But, you know, maybe it'll go off there given time. I don't know. And I would just like to say for anybody that's, you know, watching this or sees this later, this is one of my all-time favorite music-related movies. I absolutely fell in love with this movie when it first came out. I did not see it at the theater. I think I just ended up, you know, kind of doing a blind buy because I had heard so many good things about Almost Famous. And, you know, I liked a lot of Cameron Crowe films in the past. Guys, I'm going to try to get this thing off of here because it's kind of bothering me. I don't really know how to get it off of there. Okay, so I'm going to pause it for a second, folks, okay? I just don't know how to get it off of here. I haven't seen this thing pop up there and just not seen it stay like that and stay on top of maybe I ain't gonna be able to get rid of it. I don't know. It's so annoying. Okay. I'm gonna restart it, I guess, and I will let y'all know when the movie starts again. But because it was bothering me to have that play and settings and all that. So I don't think anybody was really in here when I first started talking about this anyway. So we're starting the movie over. And I'm at the DreamWorks Pictures and Columbia Pictures Present screen. Now we're showing a Vinyl Films production of. Excuse me. I've also been sneezing like crazy. I don't know if the allergens have gotten stirred up or whatever, but so we weren't too far into oh, excuse me, far into the movie when I restarted it. Like I said, I don't know what the deal was with the play and stuff like that sitting on top of there. And we can also see that Frances McDormand is in this. I've always loved Frances McDormand. Kate Hudson, I absolutely love as well. And Patrick Fugit, Anna Paquin. I know some people don't like Anna Paquin. I think I saw Uncle Bill didn't like Anna Paquin. I don't know. I don't. Fairuza Balk. I don't have any problem with Anna Paquin. I've always liked her and everything I've seen her in. I mean, I don't know if that. I didn't watch the video per se that Uncle Bill did. So maybe it was something in her personal life. Maybe it was an interview. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, who sadly is no longer with us, was an incredible actor. I really wish that he could have had many, many more acting years in him. So we're hearing the Chipmunks Christmas song, um, which I know a lot of you are probably familiar with. And we see that Nancy Wilson also did the score for this. And I don't believe her and Cameron Crowe are married now, but they were married for several years, and she did a lot of the music for his films. And Nancy Wilson, along with her sister Ann Wilson, are the main members of the band Heart, which I absolutely love. Plus, this film itself has a lot of classic music in it. Not only from bands and solo artists that we have known through the years, but also from the band within the film Stillwater, which that music is fantastic in and of itself. So we're seeing the young version of Patrick Fugit's character here, with his mom, Frances McDormand. Frances McDormand plays his mom, and we see these funny little scenes where his mom is real specific, and she's telling this guy who's putting Merry Xmas on a store window that it's not Merry Xmas, it's either Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. And we're seeing the introduction to William, Patrick Fugit's character, his sister, who they have to hide music from their mom. Even something as innocent as Simon and Garfunkel, she has to hide from her mom because, as her mom says, look at them. And she points her pictures. They are on pot. And you can see she's hiding an album under her coat. And her mom says it's because it's about drugs and promiscuous sex, to which William's sister says, it's poetry. And she's like, look at their eyes. They're on pot. And, apparently their mother has decided that, they can't have white sugar or flour, butter. And then they have to celebrate Christmas on the day in September when their mom knew it wouldn't be commercialized. But we can also see that their mother is a good mother. She's trying to protect her children, but she's kind of going into overkill. And we can see the Serenity Prayer that's on the wall in back of William there. And she says the word feck instead of the other F word. And her mother's like, there it is. Your sister used the F word. And William says, I think she said feck. And she says, what's the difference? He says, the letter U. There's a lot of great dialogue in here. That's something that Cameron Crowe was always really, really great at in his films, was having great, timeless, and timely dialogue. It could almost seem to fit any time period, but he was also very good at putting dialogue that fit either the modern time, if it was something like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, or something that's supposed to be in the past. He's just very, very good at that, of tuning into the pulse of young people at whatever age, whatever time period. So we also find out that William is advanced for his age, and we're going to find out in a little bit that he has skipped a few grades, and he is a lot younger than he realized. That probably is letting me know that my package is here, but I'm going to wait a little bit. Again, folks, please let me know if you would like me to change times for these watch alongs. If the later time would be more appropriate and helpful for you to be able to get in here and watch these live, if earlier would be more helpful. Because I know our lives are busy, especially on a Sunday. And sometimes, I realize people would rather be doing their own thing than sitting here with me doing a watch along on a Sunday evening. But I just want to hear from you guys and gals, because like I said last night, somebody is voting on these, but I'm not having the same amount of people that show up for these as people that vote. So that's leads me to believe there's something about timing. I'm hoping it's not me that is, boring you guys and gals. Or maybe you're hoping that I'll have somebody else on here with me, which I sincerely hope that too. But a lot of people have started their own channels and started doing their own thing. And, we'll soon be getting into the summer months. And I would love, love, love to have people on here with me to do these watch alongs, but sometimes it's just not feasible. So now we're talking about William. His mother's telling him, "You're 11." And his mom's like, "So you skipped 5th grade. There's too much padding in the grades." And so he screams out, "11." And she said, "You also skipped kindergarten because I taught it to you when you were 4. And he says, "This explains so much." And we saw in the earlier scenes that he was kind of getting ridiculed by the other kids in the locker room for being so much younger than they were. So his mom's telling him, "You're 2 years ahead of everybody else. Take those extra years and do what you want. Go to Europe for a year, take a look around and see what you like." She thinks she's doing him a favor, and she does tell him, "Follow your dream." So we find out that William's sister Anita is leaving home to become a stewardess because she just can't stand living at home with her mother anymore, and the rules and the what she thinks is just complete nonsense. So she's running off to be a stewardess. And she's going to be going to San Francisco. I believe they're already in California. She's just going to a different part of California. And Anita tells him, "One day you will be cool." And she says, "Look under your bed, it'll set you free." And this is literally a turning point for William when he sees what his sister has left behind for him. And their mom says she'll be back. And to which she goes, "Wahoo!" And her mom says, "Well, maybe not soon, but she'll be back." So now William is getting his first look at what his sister has left to him. And apparently, it's a very extensive collection at that time period of albums, vinyl. We're seeing the Rolling Stones, um, we're seeing Led Zeppelin, Neil Young, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I actually have that on CD. Jimi Hendrix, Cream, Joni Mitchell. There, all the big bands and solo artists at the time. Bob Dylan, uh, the Who's album Tommy. And there's a note inside there to listen to Tommy with a candle burning, and you will see your entire future. And another reason why these scenes of the vinyl to me are important is because in the last several years, vinyl has made a resurgence. Vinyl kind of fell out of favor and people went to CDs and stuff like that. But then vinyl made a resurgence and they actually make quote unquote collectible albums now. Now, are things more expensive? Yes, they are. Um, my mom, she used to talk about when she was a kid buying records and stuff. So she probably doesn't understand the collectability of them now, but she certainly enjoyed her fair share of music on vinyl when she was a kid. And now it is 1973, and William is in high school. And people are still kidding him. It says William Miller is too young to drive, and apparently it had the F word up there, and somebody is meticulously taking that down. Sorry, gang. So we're seeing the impersonation of Lester Bangs. If you don't know who Lester Bangs is, I urge you to look him up. He was a very colorful character back in the day. But Philip Seymour Hoffman is playing Lester Bangs, who he was basically a music journalist, a rock journalist, that interviewed a ton of people back in the day. And like I said, he was a very colorful individual. And he has the audacity to call Jim Morrison a drunken buffoon. And he's like, give me the Guess Who. They got the courage to be drunken buffoons, which I love Jim Morrison and the Doors. And I also love the Guess Who. I grew up hearing my dad talk about bands like the Guess Who and CCR and Three Dog Night, all of those bands. And I fell in love with those bands. And I have to give credit to my dad for bringing those to me or to my mind, the forefront of my mind. So they're playing some Iggy Pop at Lester's request. I've never been a huge Iggy Pop fan, but I can understand why some people would be. I mean, his stuff is not awful. It's just normally it's not my cup of tea. So now we're seeing William talking to Lester. And the William character is apparently based on Cameron Crowe, who Cameron Crowe did write for Rolling Stone at a young age. I don't think him writing for Rolling Stone came about in the same way that it comes about for William in this movie. But I think it's pretty cool that Cameron Crowe was able to do that, and also that he was able to turn some of the experiences that he had into the film Almost Famous. So Lester's telling him he used to do speed, mixing a little cough syrup, and he would write 25 pages of dribble on the faces of Coltrane just to write, he says. And so he says, keep sending me your stuff. But he says, I can't stand here all day talking to my many fans. And so it's almost like, they're going to separate and not see each other again. But in another scene, we're going to see that they end up going to this little restaurant or cafe or whatever you want to call it, and having some fries and stuff. And Lester kind of takes William under his wing a little bit. And he's telling him, because once you go to LA, you're going to have all kinds of people wanting to be your friend. But he says they're going to be fake friends. And this is very wise. If Lester Bang really did give this advice, that is very wise information to give to someone, especially someone as young as William, who is wanting to become a rock journalist. He's telling him you're going to get free records from the company. And he says, there's nothing about you that's controversial, man. He says it's going to get ugly. They're going to buy you drinks. You're going to meet girls. They're going to fly you places for free, offer you drugs. He says, I know it sounds great, but these people are not your friends. They want you to write about the genius of rock stars, and they will ruin rock and roll and strangle everything we love about it. And he talks about an industry of cool. And the industry of cool is something that to me is still ever present. And it's not just in rock music, it can be in any kind of music. It can be in the workplace. I see it all the time, no matter what job I've had, past, present, or future. I know that there's going to be that industry of cool. The elite group of people that think that they are more special than anybody else. And if you don't believe that it happens in every job, trust me, it does. Wait around a little bit, you will see it. And he also says you have to make your reputation on being honest and unmerciful. And I think that those are two things that any writer has to be. The number one, they have to be honest and they have to be unmerciful, which means they can't be afraid of what these people are going to think about what they're writing about them, right? You can't be afraid about what famous people are going to think about what you're writing, because you can't always write lovely, lovely things about them. Sometimes you got to write the bad stuff too. So he is supposed to be interviewing Black Sabbath at this concert. But as we're going to see, William's going to have a little bit of a problem getting into or getting backstage. And his mother yells to him, she's like, don't take drugs. And everybody, people got bottles of beer and they probably got drugs on them. And they're like, yes, mother. So here is William trying to get backstage. We're seeing some of the girls around that they say they're band-aids, but he calls them groupies, or he's going to call them groupies. Well, the guy at the door says, hey, you're not on the list, slams the door in his face. The girls are getting a good look at William, kind of giggling. And he says, I'm a journalist. He says, I write for Cream Magazine. He says, go to the top of the ramp, the other girls. But William's gonna try one more time. Doesn't work. So the girls want to know what band he is with. And he says, I'm here to interview Black Sabbath. He said, I'm a journalist. I'm not a. And they're like, you're not a what? And so this is where we get introduced to Penny Lane, played by Kate Hudson. He says, I'm not a groupie. And she says, we are not groupies. And the other girl says, this is Penny Lane, man. Show some respect. And she said, groupies sleep with rock stars because they want to be near someone famous. We're here because of the music. We're Band-Aids. But sadly, as much as I like the Band-Aids on here, and as much as I like the character of Penny Lane and how Kate Hudson portrays her, point blank, these girls are groupies. They act like groupies. We're going to see this. They're dancing around topless with the guys in Stillwater. And, they even will eventually, have sex with William. And William's not even the rock star. So, in so many instances throughout this movie, these girls are shown to be groupies. But you like them because of their personalities better than you do just any run of the mill groupie, right? But see, they still go crazy over, oh, it's Black Sabbath. They're screaming over Black Sabbath. And here is Sapphire, played by Fairuza Balk, and she's got a bunch of backstage passes for the girls. And she looks at William and she says, who brought Opie? And the guy says, you got to go back to the top of the ramp. And Penny says, I'll try to get you a pass. I really will. And William is realizing that getting on the inside is going to be a little bit harder, or quite a bit harder than he thought it was. So here's the arrival of Stillwater, the band that's going to be central to this movie very, very soon. And Billy Crudup, I really, really like his acting style and his acting ability, especially in this film. I've seen him in other films, but I especially like him in this film. So he switches gears and he says, I'd like to interview somebody from your band. So Russell, that's Billy Crudup's character. He says, I really love your band. I love the song Fever Dog. Um, he's trying to pump them up a little bit so they will listen to him. And Russell is not the lead singer. Jason Lee's character is the lead singer of the band, but Russell is basically the lead guitarist, and who the girls kind of fall all over themselves for. Not that they don't fall all over themselves for some of the other guys, but so they're like, oh, all right, you're coming in with us, and the guys at the door said he's not on your list, and it's like it's okay. So William is getting his first bird's eye view of what it looks like backstage at a rock concert. So we can see there that Jason Lee's character is a little bit upset, that Russell gets all the accolades and attention and stuff. And he's talking about all this great things about rock and roll, and then he said, "And the chicks are great." So Penny shows back up again, and she has apparently got him a pass, and he says, "Well, I got him with Stillwater." Well, gang, if anybody is watching, I am going to step away and get my package in, and I will be right back. Hey, Ice Buoy. I'm sorry I missed your message at 7:49. Yeah, the guitar sound is incendiary. You're on a quick 15-minute lunch break. Well, thank you for for hanging out with me for a little bit, Ice Ice Booey. I appreciate that. Oh, anytime. I love doing these streams, and I wish, I could get back to having the numbers like I used to have, but it is what it is. I'm here to do these things for the people that can come in here. So we see that William is very aggressively writing down virtually everything that's going on during the Stillwater set. And Penny kind of leans over to him. It's like, no, don't do that. Watch the music, enjoy the show. And even though these guys are not a real band, I think they really personificate they're the personification of what a real rock band would have been in the 70s. So Russell asked William, he says, we're going to be at the Riot House all weekend. You want to come to LA? It's the Continental Hidehouse, and it's on the Sunset Strip. And then he says, well, tell your friend, Miss Penny Lane, to call me. So I don't know about you guys, but it seems almost as if Russell and Penny already knew each other. That is my thinking. And that maybe she wants to get to know him even better than she already does. Bruce Balk's character, Sapphire, is going to come up and gives him a little kiss and says, bye, Opie. And he's just, at this point, William's just gone. He already loves this atmosphere. And he tells Penny, he said, you just missed Russell. He stays at the Riot House all weekend under the name Harry Houdini. And William says, so how well do you guys know each other? And then, she doesn't, she's kind of coy. She won't answer, but she says, we live in the same city. So if you need somebody to talk to or need a ride or need, whatever you need, I'm here. Sorry that my computer's making noises, gang. So, the "it's all happening" phrase keeps coming up too. I'm not sure if that was ever a real phrase that maybe some of these girls that followed bands said, or if this was something that was made up for the movie. So we can see that William is, he's listening to the interviews that he got from Stillwater, and he's typing up the information. And here comes Daryl, his sister Anita's girlfriend, boyfriend. Um, and Daryl is not quite acting like he did near the beginning of the film. He says, so your sister's a stewardess now, and William says, they're not really talking. They never did really talk. And and Daryl starts saying, we flew the friendly skies in this room, and he's like, I don't want to know. And then he looks at William and he says, you seem cooler. Apparently, William and Anita's mom freaks everybody out. I think we're led to believe that Daryl crawled in Anita's window a lot of times, but now Anita's room has become William's room. So William says, Mom, I'm 15. And she's like, I worry about drunk drivers. And she says, and here's that money I owe you. Your father's favorite joke, I don't do it as well. And truth be told, though, William is not telling his mom the whole truth. He's not telling her that he's going to hang out with rock stars at the Riot House. He's telling her that he's going to a school dance, And his mom is happy because she thinks, William's coming out of his shell. He's going to, find friends and stuff like that. She has no idea what he's really going to do. And where he is with Penny going to the Riot House. And he says, so you and Russell. And she says, no, Russell has a girlfriend and I can't even say her name. For those of you that are listening to the soundtrack and the dialogue, we heard a little bit of Rod Stewart there. So we've got some Alice Cooper fans, super fans, I guess. And Penny's telling people she's retired when we know she's not. And that was Peter Frampton playing Humble Pie's road manager. So we're also going to see that William, everywhere he goes, he's going to get these little mementos from these hotels. So we can see that William is very distracted by the different stars that are around. We can see that everybody knows Penny and everybody loves Penny. I mean, I think that this is what these scenes right here are what raised the Penny Lane character above just normal groupie status. She's basically a fixture in these bands' lives. So, Plexia, Anna Paquin's character, is telling William that, basically you were her excuse for coming here. She's going to act like she doesn't care anything about Russell. And then everything's going to, pan out like she planned it. And he's like, oh, we got to stop them. Because Plexia says, well, she'll eat him alive. And she's like, stop them? She says, well, you were her excuse for coming here. And she's going to go get ice. And Russell is, he's following hot on the heels of Penny Lane. And then she asked William about pot. And she's like, do you have any pot? And he said, no, not on me. And she said, do you smoke? And he says, no, but I grow it. And then she says, you're funny. If only you were taller, English, and rich. Now, this shows you how superficial these girls are. Because she's saying, if only you were this and that and the other. And he said, well, I'd be someone else. And she says, yeah, good point. And they start calling William the enemy. And he tells her, you're retired like Frank Sinatra's retired. And so Russell is basically telling Penny all the things that she wants to hear so that he can get back in her good graces. I'm not saying he doesn't care about Penny, but I just have to wonder how many real girls, not girls that were just groupies. Um, because, like I said, there's something that raises a few of these girls above groupie status. And that is that they have feelings. They have, um, their feelings get hurt. And if any of these girls that were just groupies ever saw this watch along, which they probably won't do, they would probably tell me off or show me the rough side of their tongue, um, because they probably didn't think that they were doing anything wrong. Um, but people that are just groupies with no other um, purpose in life but to have sex with rock stars so they can talk about that till the end of time. I saw this little clip actually that Candace sent to me of this woman. She was a lot older now and stuff, but she was basically given a laundry list of every rock star that, or every band that she had circulated through the members and had sex with, or that so and so was her boyfriend, so and so was her boyfriend, and I had a relationship with so and so. And it's like, who cares? Especially, who cares about that now? I mean, are you proud that you um, possibly destroyed relationships that these guys had with their wives, with their kids, and everything because you just wanted to have, a one night stand with them or whatever it is that you wanted to do with them? And I realize it takes two to tango, and these guys didn't have to give in. They chose to do that, and they are at fault as well. But if this temptation wasn't put in their way by these women that see an opportunity and they just go for it, and be damned the consequences that could happen. Um, I think that they seriously needed to reevaluate their lives. So we're all these conversations where William is talking to Lester Bangs, whether it's by phone or whatever, are just so humorous and enlightening. And like I said, I hope that that's how the real Lester Bangs was. I hope that that's a little snapshot of how he was, especially at that time. So now William is going out on tour with Stillwater. We're seeing Penny taking pictures of everybody. So Russell's telling him, absolutely, when we get to Phoenix, I will do this interview with you. And William says, I have to get back home soon because I'm going to graduate from high school. And Russell says, look at me. I didn't graduate. And here you are talking to me and going to interview me. And William starts to write that down. He says, no, 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 don't write that down. Our band bio says that we all graduated. So Penny's trying to make excuses for Russell. So they're in Arizona now. And Russell tells him, in a few minutes, come by the room and I'll give you that interview. So we find out that William's got a message from your mother, and the guy at the hotel says, she's a handful. And he says, she freaked me out. Tell her to stop. And his mom said, don't do drugs. So now we're back to Jeff and Russell, and Jeff says, I'm worried, um, he looks harmless, but he's writing for Rolling Stone, and Rolling Stone broke up Cream, trashed Layla, and he writes what he sees. He says that little shit is the enemy, and then he says, although it would be cool to be on the cover. So William is stuck once again. Well, maybe not stuck, but he's with the girls. And they're going crazy because Simon Kirk from Bad Company is by the pool. So William is, he's at Russell's hotel room door, and there's a do not disturb sign. And Russell is like, go away. And he's like, should I come by later? He says, yes, I'm in too truthful a mood. And William finds out he's in there with Penny. And she tells him, come to the radio interview tonight. Don't worry about it. To which William turns it around to, maid, you can, come in there the room. As he should, because Russell's being an asshole at this point. So apparently this radio DJ is stoned. And I don't think he's going to be doing any proper interview with these guys. So we find that the DJ conducting the interview, Quincy, is falling asleep at the wheel, basically. So they basically, take over this interview. And then Quincy wakes up and just starts talking about Love Thing, one of Stillwater's other songs. So Sapphire answers the phone when William's mother calls, and she says, "This is Mary Ann with the pot." And William's mother is like, "No, this is not Mary Ann with the pot. This is Elaine, his mother." She says, "Could you give William a message for me, please? Tell him to call home immediately, and also tell him I know what's going on." And Sapphire tries to make things better and say, you should be really proud of him. He respects women, he likes women, and let's just pause and appreciate a man like that. And she says, "And don't worry, he's still a virgin, and we're all looking out for him." And then to protect herself, she says, this is a maid speaking, by the way. So Russell says, just make us look cool. He says, "I will quote you warmly and accurately." He said, "Well, that's what I'm worried about." And in fact, that's what the whole band's worried about. He says, "Some of us, we got girlfriends back home. Some of us have wives. And some of the people that you meet on the road are really amazing people." And then they show Penny, who William by now is head over heels in love with. And then, of course, Russell lays it on fairly thick there and says, like you, William. And some things are okay for a few people to know, but not the whole world, right? And he's also talking about how hard it is to walk out on this band. But he says, basically musically, I'm past these people. And he says, I'm telling secrets to the one guy you don't tell secrets to. And this line is going to come back, and William was going to be saying it. So, gang, I'm not upset or anything, but there haven't been a whole lot of people in here. And I'm not going to stop the watch along. I'm just going to go away for a few minutes. I'm going to get me something to eat real quick and all that. But for those of you that come in here, please continue to watch. If you are still in here, please continue to watch along with the movie. And I will be back as soon as I can get back. Okay. I will definitely be back way before the movie's over. All right, gang, I'm back. And I was watching the I'm a Golden God segment where they're at the party, and Dick has come to the rescue to get Russell and William. And Russell is on acid, or he has been on acid. And, he's trying to attack William here. And Dick says, Dick, their manager says, don't worry, he only means half of what he says. And William's like, which half? So Russell gets back on the bus, and everybody's kind of like looking at him. And Dick is making the final announcement to the kids that had the party. We'll see y'all again in 74. And now they're leaving Topeka, Kansas, going on to the next leg of their tour. But basically, nobody's talking because before Russell and William went to the party in Topeka, they were having an argument over a T-shirt, particularly Russell and Jeff, where Russell was at the forefront of the T-shirt graphic, and everybody else was like fuzzy and in the background. But they're going to start singing Elton John's Tiny Dancer, which, once again, I'd like to say this has some exceptional music in it, very timeless music, time full for the time frame that this is supposed to take place in as well. And that kind of gets everybody back to normal, all singing Tiny Dancer together on the tour bus. So once again, William's telling Penny, I have to go home. And she's like, shh, you are home. And I guess in essence, she's telling him, you're where you need to be at this point in time in your life. So now we're back to William's mom, who is teaching, I believe, a college class. And she says, I'm sorry, I can't concentrate. She says, rock stars have kidnapped my son. And I think that's actually in the trailer, which is, I mean, I'm sure that's how the character felt. But it's just so funny. So Jeff Beebe, who actually started the band, it started out not as Stillwater, but as the Jeff Beebe Band. He's trying aggressively to get William to pay attention to him, but you can see that William is dividing his attention between Jeff, who he's interviewing, and Russell, who he so desperately wants to do that once in a lifetime interview with, and has not, as of yet, been able to do that. So here's another call between William and Lester. And he says, Lester, he's like, Rolling Stone's calling me and I don't have my core interview. And he's like, calm down, William. This is how you handle it. He says, he's going to ask you how the story's coming along, and you need to tell him that it's a think piece about a mid-level band struggling with their own limitations and the, harsh face of stardom. And they are now in Greenville, and the girls are bored. And William is relegated to the bathtub where he's trying to put all his notes together in writing. And Plexia says, let's deflower the kid. So they are so bored that they are going to de-virginize poor William there. And basically, Penny comes in, sits on the toilet, and he's like, I don't know. I just thought maybe we could hang out and do regular stuff, and then I'd see you pee. And she says, you're one of us. If you come to Cleveland, Bowie's going to be at Swingos, the greatest hotel. And I'll introduce you, to their security guard, or to Bowie's security guard. And he said, don't you know any regular people? And she says, well, famous people are just more interesting. And they all bust in and said, your time has come. And he says, like, did Russell call? And it's like, deflower, Opie must die. And I think this red flush that comes to Patrick Fugit's face here, I think that's pretty real, because it would be hard to not be a little embarrassed during this scene. I don't know how you could, just make that happen. I think he was really, really embarrassed. And they're like, come on, Penny, join us. And Penny's not going to. She's going to very politely turn around and bow out of the situation. And this is another scene, I think, that raises her status above that of groupie. If she was just merely a groupie, she would have joined in on this. But I don't know if Sapphire finished the job, because she's the one that's actually in bed with William here. So Ben Torres is calling from Rolling Stone, and William hears that, and he like takes the phone away from Sapphire, and he says, this is William, and Ben Fong Torres wants to know, how's it going? And he says, well, I'm getting good stuff out here. And he says, now listen, get it together, man. We're both professionals here, okay? I don't need to tell you this. We already have a Hunter Thompson. You're not there to join the party. You're there to get the interview. And he said, this isn't Cream Magazine. This is Rolling Stone. And we need that story in 4 days, and I need to know how it's shaping up. And all the while, he's trying to keep these girls quiet by telling Ben what Lester told him to tell Ben, which seems to do the job. It seems to relax Ben. He says, I like what we're saying. Let me see if I can get you 1,000 more words. And he says, don't tell the band, but they're in consideration for the cover. So this is at the point that William really loses his patience with the girls, because he is feeling used, because they were bored, and so they took his virginity away. And now Sapphire's like, well, you just take the laundry. If you're going out, take the laundry. And he says, what am I to you? Tell me right now. What am I to you? And then poor William, we see him with 2 laundry bags. He passes by Jeff's room. Basically sees that everybody's getting lucky. Dick's getting lucky. Jeff's getting lucky. Russell's getting lucky. And Russell has, please do not disturb ever. And I think this is where William gets really mad at him and flips off the door of his hotel room. I could only imagine how exhausting this would be for someone who's trying to get that really great story. He's working for Rolling Stone, and but he's still just a kid, and we see that he's crying here. I would be doing the same thing. At 15 years old, if I had been sent on the road with a band and I had all these pressures and all that, I would definitely break down and cry. But now Russell's here and he's wanting, you got to come to Cleveland with us. And he's like, I have to go home. And then Penny comes around and her and Russell are both saying, come to Cleveland, come to Cleveland. And he's like, I don't want to go to Cleveland, okay? I want to go home. But Russell says, I like it when you yell, man, but I am not going to let you miss out on the rock mecca. So they are in Cleveland now. Well, where apparently David Bowie is going to be the headliner. So we have a guy who's pretending like he doesn't like Bowie's new stuff, right? It's Hamburgers for the Apocalypse. And then they see Bowie and he's like, it's Bowie. And he loses his mind. People are so fickle, aren't they? So here is the stuff where it really seems like these girls are groupies, including Penny, who is dancing around in her underwear and her green jacket that she wears all year round, evidently. And meanwhile, poor William is there by himself. So William is making another call to his mom, and he's promising her he'll be back for graduation. He'll only miss one test. And Russell comes along, wants to talk to his mom, and he's like, no, Russell. And Russell says, "How does it feel to be the mother of the greatest rock journalist we've met?" Um, Elaine, his mother, is not impressed. And she basically says, "Hey, listen to me, mister. Your charm doesn't work on me. I'm on to you." And she says, "Of course you like him. He worships you people. That's fine by you as long as he helps make you rich." And Russell's like, "Well, hey, I'm not rich." And she's like, "Listen to me. He's a smart, good hearted 15-year-old kid with infinite potential. This is not some apron wearing mother you're speaking to." And no, she's not. She said, "I shouldn't have let him go. He's not ready for your compromised values and diminished brain cells." And at that point, she says, "Am I speaking to you clearly?" And he's like, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "You will not keep him from his chosen profession, which is law. And if you do try to, you will meet the person on the other side of this phone line, and it will not be pretty." And then she tells him to go do his best, be bold, and mighty forces will come to your aid. And please get my son home safely, which is the ultimate goal. And we're getting down to the final hour. Like I said, the bootleg cut is a little bit longer than the theatrical cut. But to be totally honest with you folks, I prefer the bootleg cut. I prefer this extended cut. I liked all the music on this film, like I said, including the Stillwater stuff. So much so that I bought this. I forget how many records are in this set, but there are a lot of them. There's several. But I bought this whole set for I think $130 a while back. I'm not sure if Amazon still has them or not, but it was well worth the money to me to have all that music included. So once again, poor William is trying to get an interview when Dick comes in and says, "Girls, I need 5 minutes with the band." So the record company sent a big time manager to talk to the guys in the band to try to get them to replace Dick. Um, and the guys basically say, "We'll send them out on a rail, don't worry about anything, Dick." And Russell tells him, "We'll finish the interview in Maryland and you can fly home from Maryland." So now this potentially new manager has come in to speak to them. He says, your manager here needs a manager. You know, if you hadn't run out on your contract in Phoenix, we could have sued over Russell's hand. That was the earlier scene where Russell nearly got electrocuted on stage. He says, right now you owe the record company more than you got, but your record's selling. So he wants them to start going on an airplane rather than going by bus because they could get to more places and have more concerts. He says you could play more dates for the plane. And Russell said, you know, but it's not about making money. It's about turning people on to the music and all that. And this guy says, you know, y'all are all making money. I'm just trying to help you get your hands on it. And he basically tells them, this isn't going to last forever. You guys may hope and wish and all that good stuff, but it's not. But I think some of these comments, you know, if you think Mick Jagger's still going to be trying to be a rock star at age 40, you're sadly mistaken. But, you know, that may have been something that was said in 73. However, you know, Mick Jagger was doing just that at age 50 and beyond that. And at this point, William is hearing Lester and the things that he said when William first met him. So we're about to reach the 2 hour mark of the bootleg cut of Almost Famous, and we're going to get into the last half quarter of the film. And again, I know there's not been a lot of people in here tonight. You know, it could be time, it could be the day I'm doing these, and all that good stuff. But now we're seeing the band and their entourage getting on a plane. They're leaving the bus behind good old Doris, as they named her. And now we're going to see, you know, poor William. He's, you know, once again, as his wits end because he still hasn't gotten his interview with Russell. So he comes in on a road manager poker party. And basically, this road manager poker party has been going on for 2 years. So we got somebody that's with The Who, Reg is with Humble Pie. Red Dog is with the Allman Brothers Band. And we only let Russell in because he brought the hash. So Dick says for $50 and a case of hiking, I'll throw in lovely ladies, Penny Lane and the Band-Aids, who have to leave the tour before New York. And they say, and Dick says, Russ, is that okay with you? And he said, okay. And William is saying that, oh, hey, they're going to do something dirty to Penny in particular. Penny doesn't even know about this. You know, and I think at this point he's becoming a little disillusioned with Russell. He had Russell on a pedestal, and now he's saying that Russell may not be the person he thought he would. And Russell tries to smooth things over. He said, she already knows that Leslie's coming to New York tomorrow. Everybody understands. This is a circus. Everybody's trying not to go home. Nobody's saying goodbye. And then he says, quit looking at me like that. And so it's Penny's birthday. They're not sure how old Penny is because Penny doesn't let too many people know too many things about her life. So they've got a cake for her. And at this point, Penny still doesn't realize that they're not going to let her go to New York with them. And their new manager kind of lets the cat out of the bag here. So everybody's coming over and getting a piece of cake from Penny. But nobody's saying anything about her not joining them on the plane to New York. And then the manager spills the beans. He said, I'm sorry the plane isn't bigger. To which, when Penny thinks about it, she realizes what that means. And Russell's a bit of a coward here because he could have stopped this, and he doesn't. And we see Penny's luggage there because apparently she thought she was going to get to go. And Penny says to William, I can read you. I know what you're thinking. And he says, what's that? You're worried about me and Russell. And he says, yeah, I got to work on that. And she says, you're so sweet. God, there was more of you in him. Now, this sets William off here. He said, don't tell me this stuff because I want to like him. And she says, "Did you miss a test or something?" He says, "You have no idea." She says, "I know I'm not on the plane. I'm not going on some other band's bus. I could go with the road crew, but that would be pathetic. And the girls are all going with Humble Pie. So if you could find out from Russell." And he says, "Penny." She says, "Forget it. I'm flying to New York myself. I've got partial tickets." And he says, "I'm not sure that's a good idea." And she says, "What are you saying? Did Russell say something?" And he's like, "No, I don't know anything." And she says, "Well, I know he wants me there." And that William breaks. He says, "Wake up. Don't go to New York." And she says, "Why are you yelling at me?" And he says, "You know what? There's no Morocco. There's never been a Morocco. There's not even a Penny Lane. I don't even know your real name." And she tries to come back with that real world stuff. And he says, "When and where does this real world occur?" He said, "I'm really confused. All these rules and all these sayings and nicknames." And she says, "Honey, you're too sweet for rock and roll." And he loses it yet again. He's like, "Sweet." He said, "Where do you get off? Where do you get sweet?" "I am dark and mysterious and pissed off." And I'm sure at this point he is. He said, "I'm not sweet. And you should know that about me. I'm the enemy." And he says, she's talking about love, and maybe it is love for somebody as much as it could be for somebody. And he spits it out. He says, "Who sold you for $50 to Humble Pie?" And then he wants to take that back. And he says, "I'm sorry." Well, actually, it was $50 in the case of beer. And she says, "What kind of beer?" And really tries to make light of it. So now they're in New York. And they're telling him, "Hey, William, we showed you everything, but we didn't get you laid." And we know from a few scenes earlier that, yeah, William did get laid. So we see Leslie, and this may seem a weird time for a new character to pop up. Um, and I never really liked the Leslie character. I mean, yeah, she is um, Russell's wife. Um, and then we see all the stuff that William has collected at all the hotels. And Dick says, "There are lighter souvenirs, right?" And he says, "Well, I kept thinking I was going to go home the next day or so." So Vic, the huge Led Zeppelin fan, tells William, that Penny and the other girls are there, and this time Jan Winter, the head of Rolling Stone, is calling and says, "We're going to need you back in San Francisco tomorrow. We need the story." and you can tell the band that they're going to make the cover. So Pelexia is going to England with Deep Purple, she's telling William. And she's like, don't forget me, okay? So he's trying to tell everybody that they made the cover. And he says, you're going to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. And everybody stops and looks at him. And so William sees Penny across the room. And then Russell sees Penny. And this is a moment that I've disliked Russell very much because he kind of snubs Penny because his wife's sitting there. And, he could have solved all of this a long time ago. If he was in love with Penny, then the right thing to do would have been to left his wife and went with Penny. But that's not what these guys do, unfortunately. They want to, and I like a lot of rock bands and I like a lot of musicians, and I realize that not all of them are doing these things, but the majority do. And I just think that is a very, despite their music being great and all that, that's a very losery thing to do. Is to do this to people, to do this to your wife, to do this to your children, to do this to the rest of your family, and groupie or not, to do that to another human being. And basically, Dick must have went over to Penny and told her he needed to get out of, or she needed to get out of there because she was causing problems with Russell and his wife. So William saw it all, so he is going to go and try to find Penny before Penny does something drastic. We're down to about the final 39 minutes of this version of the bootleg version of Almost Famous. And there's Penny, and we see that she's obviously under the influence of alcohol and whatever else that she has taken. Um, and she tells William, "You're the last of my old time friends. Polexia went to England with Deep Purple. And she said even Sapphire went somewhere else. But she left her Quaaludes, and so we know not only has Penny drank alcohol, no telling how much alcohol, but she also took some of Sapphire's Quaaludes. And so he calls the front desk and says, "Can you please send a doctor?" He's trying to keep Penny awake. He says, "My wife's had an accident with some Quaaludes." So he knows that he needs to keep her awake in all this. And I love those boots, by the way, that Penny has on. And this is interspersed with William's graduation, which he is unfortunately missing. And his mother's very sad. And she says to William, "Why doesn't he love me?" And that is the battle cry of the broken-hearted woman. And not only women that have been involved with rock stars would say that, but I think normal women have said that. Either they are in love with somebody they can't have, or they are with someone and they don't get the type of love and attention that they feel that they should get. And he says, "Oh God, why am I so nervous? You'll never remember this." And he says, "I love you" to her. And I'm about to go boldly go where many men have gone before. And he kisses her. And here come the medical professionals who are going to have to pump Penny's stomach. I've never had my stomach pumped, and I hope I never have to, because this looks, ugh, this looks torturous here. Because they're gonna put a rubber tube down her throat, and they're saying, you got to relax, don't bite it, you got to swallow it. And then they're going to put some stuff in her stomach that's going to make her throw up. And there she goes. So she basically tells William, she was at a concert and Keith Richard pulled her, aside and they gave her a Coke. And she said, basically, from that moment on, I never went home. And then she tells William what her real name is, Lady. But her mother named her Lady Goodman. And then she thanks him. She says, "Thank you, William Miller." And she's actually going to, I think she's going home at this point. So, gang, I hate to, for those of you that may be still watching along, um, I'm going to take myself out of the stream and make another restroom break, but I will be right back. Okay, gang, I'm back, and this is the airplane scene where they think they're going to crash. And we're finding out people are confessing all their sins, basically. And they let Dick know that most of them slept with Marna, Dick's woman. Um, Jeff tells Russell that he slept with Leslie when Russell and Leslie were fighting. And now Russell and Jeff are arguing over the band and stuff. He says, I had to live with you and now I might have to die with you and it's not fair. And Russell just finally breaks and says, enough. And then Jeff says, I'm still in love with you, Leslie. And she's like, I don't want to hear it anymore. So now Jeff says, you were sleeping with Penny, that groupie, last summer up until yesterday. Why don't you tell Leslie that? And then William just loses. He says, that groupie, she was a band-aid. All she did was love your band, and you all used her. You all used her and you threw her away. And she almost died last night when y'all were with Bob Dylan. And then he says, I love her. And I feel that the character William does truly love Penny. And then the drummer says, I'm gay. And then things clear up with the plane and they're not going to die. So it took everybody confessing things. We see that William is so shook up from that plane ride that he's going to get sick here. So we know that William has not seen his sister since she left home, and she left home to become a stewardess. And Russell tells him, write what you want at this point. And they are in Tupelo, Mississippi right now. So now William is officially in the Rolling Stone offices in San Francisco now. And this is going to be another big blow to William. And he tells the secretary, he said, I'm one of your writers, William Miller. And the receptionist or secretary realizes this point, oh boy, she's telling him he's just a kid. And she tells him, go right in. And everybody's just staring at him. And this girl here that's kind of tapping the pen on the roll of paper or a magazine that she's got. I hope to goodness she is not based on a real person because she's the ultimate bitch here. And she's, saying, "Did you get anything from Russell Hammond?" Jan Winter saying, "It sounds like you're writing what they wanted you to write." And the bitchy girl is saying, "It's going to take me days to go through all these handwritten bits of paper." One of the other guys is saying it's a puff piece. And of course, William's trying to defend himself. He says, "It's not finished. Give me tonight to work on it." So he's going to, at this point, try to polish it up a little bit. Frank, do you need to go outside? I think one of my dogs needs to go outside, folks. Going out to Jojo. Oh, well, okay then. Hey, come on. Come on, girl. You can go out there. You want to go out there with Frank? Here you go. Sorry, gang. So once again, he's talking to Lester because he needs that, you know, advice. And I always like this conversation. He says, Lester tells him, "Hey, I'm always home. I'm uncool." He says, "The only true currency in this bankrupt world is what you share with someone when you're uncool." And I think that's another great line. He said, "If you want to be a true friend to them, be honest and unmerciful." And he says that again. So now what he's written, most of the people at Rolling Stone think is fantastic. And Bitchy Girl says, "Give it to me. I'll call and check the quotes." And then Jeff says, "Holy shit, that I just got the phone with Rolling Stone. He's using it all." And Russell says, "So what?" And Jeff says, "We come off like amateurs, some average band trying to come to grips with success. Jealous and fighting and breaking up, or buffoons. Rock and roll can save the world. The chicks are great." And then he says, "I sound like a dick. I didn't say that." And we know through watching the movie that he did say that. And then one of the other guys says, "This kid has you on acid screaming, 'I'm a golden god' from a rooftop." And Russell's like, "Wait, I never said that." Of course, he doesn't remember because he was on acid. And he says, "Or did I?" And Jeff said he was never a person. He was a journalist. And then Russell tells him, "I told him he could write what he wanted." And so Dennis, our manager, says, they haven't called or they haven't talked to Russell yet, so he can deny everything. So they're, telling William everything's great. But now the fact checker comes in and she said the band just denied 90% of the story. It's a fabrication. You weren't honest and she wasted our time. But she's just bitchy, though. And she says Russell Heyman's the one that denied it. So poor William is just devastated. And there is Anita at her career as a stewardess, and she sees William. She hadn't seen William in a while. And Anita's going to do the good sister thing. She's going to be there for her brother. She says you look awful. But it's great. She says you're living your life. You're free of mom. She says, hey, I'll take off work. Let's have an adventure together, you and me, finally. Anywhere you want to go, anywhere in the world. And she says, this is not my idea of a good time. And he said, just get me to my bed. That's all he wants. And he wants his mom and his sister to make up. So they're going to very awkwardly hug each other. That's one game. I know. Sorry, gang, I'm drying my dogs off here because it's still raining here. It doesn't know how to quit raining, does it, girls? Okay. So now we are seeing that, Sapphire's there again, kind of hanging around some of the old gang. And so she's going to end up talking to Russell here. But Jeff and Russell are talking here, and, he said, Jeff's like, do we really have to like each other all the time? He says, you know what they say, all the great partnerships hate each other. And he said, we didn't hate each other that much. Jeff said, well, I don't know. Russell's like, did we? And now they're laughing. He says, I just can't picture you with Leslie. And he says, I'm the you they get when they can't get you. And then they end up hugging each other. And then Sapphire shows up. And he says, "Is Penny okay?" And she says, "Oh, the Quaaludes incident? Well, it wasn't pretty. She could have died. I always told her not to let too many guys fall in love with her." She said, "I guess I was wrong. One of them ended up saving her life," talking about William, of course. And he says, "William," she says, what do you care? We all know what you did to him." She said, "Everybody knows, even Penny Lane." And she says, "Can you believe these new girls? None of them use birth control and they eat all the steak. They don't even know what it is to be a fan." And I think at that point, that's what separates the girls that we saw originally from these new girls. So Russell calls Penny and she says, "Don't hang up." He says, "I need to see you face to face because I'm never as good as when you're there." And he tells her he's sorry. And he wants her address, but Penny's got other ideas, other plans. And she thinks that the person that Russell really needs to talk to and make amends to is William. So she doesn't give Russell her address. She gives Russell William's address. And William's mother answers the door and he says, I'm Russell Hammond. And she says, "So this is a famous Russell Hammond." And he says, "Is she home?" And she's like, "Who, Anita?" And then he's like, "Where am I?" He's totally confused. And then he's going to start looking at the pictures on the wall. And he sees where he's at. And she says, "My son's very important to me too, and I do think you owe him an apology." And then she says, "There's hope for you yet, Russell." He says, I think we both wanted to be with her, and she wanted us to be together. And he says, "Oh, I called your magazine and told them the truth." So at this point, William is going to give it one last go and get this interview with Russell. So they're back, taking a bus to all their tour dates. No more airplanes for the band. And we see that William's family has been mended. Anita's, back talking to the family, talking to her mother in particular. And we're seeing that um, Penny has taken all those partial tickets and going to Morocco. She's finally going to go to Morocco. So we have officially, I'm going to let the credits roll as I usually do at the end of these. We officially reached the end of the bootleg cut of Almost Famous. I hope those of you that were in and out of here enjoyed this. I appreciate Ice Ice Bowie coming in here and leaving me a couple of messages in the chat. As always, sir, it's good to see you in here. For those of you that didn't feel comfortable being in the chat, but that you were in here from time to time watching as I navigated through Almost Famous. I hope you got something out of this. For those of you that will watch this on the replay, I hope you enjoy it, even though I had to step away 2 or 3 times for different things. For one thing, to have a couple of bathroom breaks because the movie is so long. And I'm usually sitting here drinking either an energy drink or a Mountain Dew as I do these watch alongs. But whatever way you watch this and whenever you watch it, I hope that you have enjoyed it. There will be no watch alongs coming up this next weekend, but the following weekend, I will be going to the polls yet again and seeing what you guys and gals have picked as far as what you want for the next watch alongs to be. Let me just, while I'm on here, check here. So Happy Birthday to Me is still winning at 60% for Saturday, May 17th. And Beetlejuice is still winning with 59% of the votes for Sunday, May 18th. So there's still time to vote. So make sure you get your votes in before I take those the voting down for this time on the Sunday before the week that I do the watch along. Okay, so we've still got credits running. So, like I said, I'm going to stay here with you, those of you that are in here, until the end credits roll. Again, want to remind everybody I should be having more Dick's Picks this coming week, more cannon fodder, more They're All Messed Up. I'm going to try to do tomorrow night, Monday night, I'm going to try to do a savage debate on the original Evil Dead versus Evil Dead 2013. People that have heard me talk about those two films know where my thoughts lie on that, but I'm going to talk about it yet again. So if you want to check that out, keep an eye out for the promotion, the thumbnail to pop up, which should mean that I am doing that particular stream. And if you're looking at the credits like I am, you can see all the wonderful, wonderful songs that were in this film and the wonderful artist. And also don't forget to check out deaditesondeck.com, my horror shop, for all the products that I've got on there, t-shirts and hats and tote bags and mouse pads and candles and blended teas. And there are more designs forthcoming. Also keep in mind that I do custom work. All you got to do is fill out the form on the homepage of the shop and let me know what you want. And also the Poe plushie, the first in a hopefully long line of Pyro plushies, will soon be making its way to the shop, again at deaditesondeck.com, with a price tag of $50. And that is because of time and material and the fact that these little jobbies or these little guys are handmade, hand sewn. I'm not using a machine. These are not being mass produced by anybody else. They're being made by me. And everybody will get a one of a kind. There's not going to be any two that are going to be alike. There's just no way possible when you're hand making these. Okay. So I wanted to remind everybody of all of that. And the credits have now rolled for Almost Famous. So I'm going to get on out of here. It is a little bit after 10 Eastern time. And I'm just going to get some rest and try to get ready for work tomorrow. Again, I want to thank everybody that was able to join me tonight. Ice Ice Bowie in particular, because he was in the chat tonight. And also for those of you that will watch this on the replay, I thank you as well. And with all that being said, I'm off like a dirty shirt. This shirt ain't dirty, but I'm off like one. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. Have a fantastic rest of your Sunday night, folks. And let's head into the week and let's kick its ass, okay? And I'm going to get out of here for now, but I'll see everybody next time.